Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go.
Fat, lazy ass. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It's Monday, March 3rd, 2025. We were checking right before the show started. Everyone's a little tired. We're still wearing our Oscar clothes. If you were with us last night after the Oscars, Adnan Verk, Coke, and I did a live show recap. We'll talk a little bit Oscars after the break today, about a half hour from now. But in the meantime, I got the same shirt, same blazer on, feel good. We had a little debate. Can we say ass? It's been approved. Thank God. So, fat, lazy ass is a word and a phrase that was used by President Trump to talk about baseball. I want to give you the quote, then I want to give you the story and the context. Baseball, which is a dine all over the place. Better. Quote, David 4869. Baseball, which is dine all over the place, should get off its fat, lazy ass and elect Pete Rose, even though far too late, into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Well, here we go. We got the full quote on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. This is President Trump on Truth Social giving you his view that he wants to pardon Pete Rose because he is a far better player than most players who have been in the Hall of Fame. It's a shame. So he is going in the next few weeks to pardon him. Let me give you a few facts. So to make sure that you've got the talking points when and if someone approaches you today and says, wow, that's big news. Pete Rose is getting into the Hall of Fame. Couple things. One, presidential pardons. A president can pardon someone who has committed a federal crime. You can pardon him from that crime, from before he's sentenced, during the sentence, after the sentence. Basically, you can expunge a record of a federal crime. It is true that Pete Rose was convicted of a federal crime, tax evasion, after he was banned from baseball. It's true he served 5 months. It is true that a president can pardon him and expunge his record. Great. No problem. Totally fine. I looked everywhere. And if you see from the bags under my eyes, spent many minutes looking for powers of presidential pardons. Say that 5 times when you're tired. The power of a presidential pardon to protect a player who is not participating in a Hall of Fame election, either pre or posthumously, could not find it anywhere. I looked at Section P. I looked at Section A. I looked hither and thither. Hi, David Samson. I'm good. The president cannot make Pete Rose eligible for the Hall of Fame. The only person who can make Pete Rose eligible for induction is Commissioner Rob Manfred, because Pete Rose is currently on the permanently ineligible list. One of the things about the permanently ineligible list in Major League Baseball is you do not get off it just because you croak. That's number one. Number two, it is not a list where a player, person, place, or thing can be removed by a presidential pardon. Number three, once you are taken off the permanently ineligible list, you are then in the category of player, person, thing, where you can be eligible to be placed on the ballot for election into the Hall of Fame. If you are a player, you get 10 chances on the ballot should you get more than 5% of the votes cast in a particular year. Those are the steps. Off the permanently ineligible list, then you're reinstated and eligible to be part of potentially a Hall of Fame ballot, which is not done by the commissioner, wink, wink. Then you are voted on by the writers. The president has no chance. I don't care where your politics are. Doesn't matter to me. The president can't do it. It's just a strange, funny thing that he said. And the other thing I wanted to say, just so, again, this is for you. You're welcome. Baseballs are not fat and lazy. Softballs are fat and lazy. Maybe they go slower, they're bigger. But a baseball is a baseball is a baseball is a baseball. Strange. Baseball should elect Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame. So now it creates a whole Megillah. It turns out that Pete Rose's attorney met with Commissioner Manfred and Pat Courtney. Pat Courtney is in charge of PR and many other things in baseball. He's the spokesman of baseball. You walk in, and it's a Tuesday when Pete Rose or one of his representatives has filed for reinstatement. He did it under Bud Selig. He did it under Rob Manfred. We spent a lot of time talking about this issue before Rob became commissioner. We spent time talking about it after Rob became commissioner. And it was always, let's really consider taking him off the permanently ineligible list and then leave it in the hands of the writers. The issue always was that Bart Giamatti issued the lifetime ban and then died 8 days later. He was the commissioner at the time, died of a heart attack. Bud Selig was not going to do anything to sully what Bart Giamatti had done. By the way, the findings were clear by the commission of what Pete Rose had done. He had hit the third rail, and this was before baseball had embraced gambling as partners. Now that baseball has embraced gambling as partners, gambling on your own team, even to win, would be still the third rail. It's not as though someone got banned for putting an advertisement of a gambling casino on the outfield wall, and the commissioner said, you didn't take it down, you're violated, you're ineligible permanently. It's not as though it is a player or an executive betting on another sport legally. This was someone who bet on his own sport and on games that he was participating in and had an active role in the outcome of the game, however minimal it may be for an MLB manager. This is third rail stuff, folks. You do not erase that or expunge it or pardon it ever, especially when you are dealing with billions of dollars, integrity of a game, integrity of a sport. But the thing about being on the permanently ineligible list is you have a chance to tell your story once a year, write a letter, show some remorse, do something instead of signing balls that says bet on baseball. And I am not in any way impugning his baseball creds. Please keep in mind, Pete Rose was the second greatest hitter of all time. So they go meet with the commissioner, and the family lawyer is meeting with him. And basically, he released a statement after an hour, which is very generous of Rob to spend an hour with him, saying the commissioner was respectful, gracious, actively participated in productive discussions regarding removing Rose from the ineligible list. Let me be clear. Any discussion you have with the commissioner about a decision that is solely the commissioner, what exactly is productive and what does engaged mean in that? The commissioner is going to decide with or without you talking to him about it. It's not like you're going to come up with a point that he didn't think of. Oh, I forgot he's dead. Had never occurred to me to think that one through. But I'm glad that it was viewed as a productive discussion. Of course, the Department of Justice had to get involved because it's a pardon that could be happening, not by Rob, by Trump. They got involved with a funny quote, basically telling you what a pardon is. It's an expression of the president's forgiveness. It can be granted in recognition of the applicant's acceptance of responsibility for the crime. Pete Rose never was charged with a crime for gambling. Did he ever go public saying, yeah, I forgot to declare that $320,000 in memorabilia income? My bad. I guess that would be recognition of acceptance of responsibility. Establishing good conduct. I guess he filed his tax returns every year after. That's good conduct. Significant period of time. It's been a minute. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's what they were saying. Here's how this ends. This ends, as most of these applications have ended, with a very unlikely reinstatement. The commissioner's term, he said, is going to be over here in about 3 years. You'll be another commissioner removed from Giamatti and from Selig. And once you're dead, you're dead. It's not a matter of how dead. You're dead, dead. Pete Rose's children are alive, but you don't think about whether they'll be dead in a few years. I think there's a chance that he comes off the ineligible list. Not today, not tomorrow. I have no inside information. I'm not breaking news. I have not spoken to the commissioner about this. I wouldn't dare to speak to him about it. Doesn't matter. Wouldn't do it. It is interesting that the president got involved, and that got me a little nervous because I was going to do a wait to see. I was going to do an official wait to see that Pete Rose will not be taken off the permanently ineligible list. And then I thought to myself, is it possible that Trump is doing something like a trade? Do you remember when Trump brought up the owner tax loophole issue where owners get depreciation on their assets? And it's a really, really important deduction that you get when you buy a franchise. It has led to the escalation in franchise values as much as anything else, including media deals. It's just not talked about because it's so dry, it'll hurt your eye. But can you imagine if Trump would use his power to change the tax code? Or what about if he went to baseball and said, I'm going to get rid of your antitrust issue as it relates to broadcasting as you're trying to get into a huge broadcast national deal here coming up. But all you got to do is reinstate Rose. How would that be for a trade, Mr. GM? I think that's what the president would call a commissioner. That's about the equivalent. If that trade would happen and it was real, the president has that type of power. The president has that type of support from the legislative branch. The president has that type of support from the judicial branch. This is not a moment, if you're baseball, that you want to be looked at as fat and lazy. This is a moment that you don't want to be on the wrong side of the president, which is a lot of what's happening, and you're seeing it. There are a lot of politicians who don't want to be on the wrong side, fearing that it will hurt their reelection, feeling it will hurt their presidential bid in 28. It is a wide open race, and I'm not talking about the Stephen A. Smith side. Is it possible to be that Machiavellian? Well, we're going to find out. Shohei Ohtani's back. This is the time of year. It's March 3rd. That's it. There's no more BS. Spring training, the regular season is starting for the Dodgers and Cubs in 15 days. That's 2 weeks and a day. It's like tomorrow. That's how quick it goes. If you're 0 for so far in spring training and you've had, getting on 10 at-bats, you're feeling a little pain. You're concerned. You want to get off the schneid, as they say. Shohei Ohtani played his first game Friday. Boom, he goes yard. He came back. He played yesterday, got 2 at-bats. The way you look at spring training box scores is just squint your eyes and be ready to nod your head because they're very long at this part of spring training. We're still very much in the late, early stages of spring training for most teams. For the Dodgers and Cubs, you're in the middle part of spring training, really the late middle part of spring training. You look at the box scores and you look at the players and when you're being replaced after 2 at-bats, etc. We wouldn't start paying attention to performance until there were way fewer in-game substitutions. And even then, to make a personnel move based on a bad stretch during spring training was unlikely. As I've told you before, you get some confirmation bias. If there's a team that doesn't want a player to make the team, that player is 0 for 9, that gives the GM an opportunity to say, look, I told you he wasn't going to make the team. There's all sorts of different ways to do it. When a player is coming back from injury, our focus was not at all result-based, at all. It didn't matter. As a matter of fact, Christian Yelich, the old Marlin, who's now a Milwaukee Brewer, remember the back surgery he had? on July 23rd. Remember what a great year he was having? He's had a bad back for a decade and finally had surgery. And he's 33 now. Yelly, I cannot believe you're 33. I'm not saying you're old, but man, it ain't early anymore. So he hadn't played since July 23rd, and he played a spring training game. Doesn't matter. I think he went 0 for 2 or struck out or grounded out. It doesn't matter. We would be way more focused on what happened after the game, way more focused on him reporting the next day into the training room. Because when some player comes off the injured list, they're still on the injured report. So we do a follow-up, see how they're doing. Yelly, does he come in? Is his back tight? Does he feel good? Is he ready to go? We're not going to start him in back-to-back games yet, but we're going to get to back-to-back, and we have it all mapped out. Spring training is the time where you are seeing your off-season work come to life, or you're seeing your off-season work get completely wasted with injuries that come up or things that happen that you didn't plan for. The Yankees are dealing with that. I don't think they planned for Stanton to miss the start of the season, but he's going to. The Yankees announced it. He left spring training. He hasn't come back yet. They did say he had a PRP in both elbows. That is basically taking out your blood, making it feel better, and then putting it back in, thinking that will help the healing process. My experience with PRPs is mediocre, with occasional doses of ineffectiveness. But he is going to miss the start of the season. The Yankees may have counted on this offseason Stanton being in the lineup with Judge, recreating some postseason magic. They likely were counting on DJ LeMahieu once they didn't get, and you know from listening to this show, they were never going to sign Bregman ever. Brian Cashman has been pretty clear about his view of Houston Astros. DJ LeMahieu hurt his calf again. Remember, he missed almost 100 games last year with injuries. He's out again. This is the time of year, as you know, when I'm very mixed. I miss baseball and running a team. I miss the people. I miss the winning and the losing. I do love getting that with shows, how many people are listening and downloading in this data, the metrics. There is a lot of winning and losing when you have a show. I don't miss at all the injuries, worrying about it, thinking about it, getting the phone calls from your GM or directly from the trainer. I just don't miss having a thought in your head and then being so out of control about how to attain that thought. I want to do a post-Oscar recap show with Adnan, and I'm in charge. I asked Adnan to do it. I asked Coca to do it, and then we do it. And then whether it's good is up to me. I'm in charge of it. When you sign a player, you're in charge of the money, you're in charge of the contract, but once it's signed, then what? What control do you have? You make believe you have control by trying to win a survey by getting a nice team playing. Hey, look at how great our chef is. Look at this nice clubhouse. Give me a break. It's not control. That's you attempting to exercise some iota of control of a situation that is so far beyond your control that every MLB owner and team president are not used to that level, that lack of control. I feel for Hal. No Stanton, no LeMahieu. Can we talk about my weekend for a minute, please, Coca? You mind? I want to talk about athletes. I want to talk about my experience with athletes very briefly. It's extensive. On the court, off the court, in the clubhouse, in the off season. I had a chance on Saturday night to spend some time with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl winning running back. Saquon Barkley made an appearance at an event I was at. Signed some autographs, took some photos, played with some kids. Saquon Barkley is the nicest, most reliable, most interesting, most fun athlete I've ever been around in that situation. There was no grumpiness. There was no upset. He was happy to be at the event. He was outgoing. He was interested, engaged, also literally engaged. He brought his fiancée, he brought his friend. Both of them were beyond lovely. But the thing that happened this weekend is I got an opportunity to be with Saquon Barkley when there was breaking news. It's one of those things that you can't plan. And believe me, there's a lot of planning that goes in to meets and meet and greets and how things go. You can't plan greatness. Greatness is when you're talking to a player and there's breaking news and you do the breaking news music, which I did the Batman theme again, having confused the Bond theme in my head from the previous show. Couldn't get the Batman theme out of my mind. So I'm sitting there. There's about 5 people and I'm going, na 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 na, breaking news. Sort of Saquon looks up. I said, there's been a trade in the NFL. His eyes open. Deebo Samuel has been traded. He said, to the Eagles? And I said, no, to the Commanders. They're trying to get me. It's a funny response when you're basically in the NFC East. You know that the Commanders are trying to get the Eagles because the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. You know the Cowboys are trying to get the Eagles. You know the Giants are trying to get the Eagles. Now, Deebo Samuel is a name. He's decent. Anyone who's traded for a 5th-round pick, I would just like to say in advance, even though the trade's not official, it can't be official until after March 12th when it will become official. But do you think that a Kevin Durant gets traded for a 5th-round pick? Or even a James Harden or a Rudy Gobert? Now, in football, 5th-round picks, they're important. They are. But Deebo Samuel's a great name. He's not a difference maker in all of a sudden that Jaden Daniels now has one of the great receivers of all time to target. Saquon's immediate reaction was, as long as it's not Myles Garrett. Of course, that's all about self-preservation. Who wants to be tackled by Myles Garrett twice a year? Who wants to have to even think about him twice a year? We then had a conversation about football teams and how important it is to win when your quarterback is young. Jaden Daniels not getting paid a tremendous amount of money. We talked about the running back market. A year ago today, he would not have thought that he would be a Philadelphia Eagle, a Super Bowl champion, an ex-Giant. Couldn't have been nicer about it. Loves Giants fans still. It's a business. Now, I will confess something because, I'm happy to do it. There's plenty of athletes who listen to the show, plenty of executives. Saquon had never listened to Nothing Personal before. And we had a good laugh because he said, when talking about his free agency and him leaving the Giants and not getting a contract and then signing with the Eagles, he just looked and says, hey, it's just business. And I then said, it's nothing personal. He said, definitely not. I was semi-deflated, but happy. I then was able to say, hey, that may be the name of a really cool show, like Nothing Personal. And then you could be, it's just business. No, it's only 8:23. We're not even a break yet. 10:23 if you're on the DraftKings Network. So I had a funny moment about that because football is business. And more players know that. Baseball, business, basketball, empowerment. More and more players understand this and know this. I want to get back to one thing about the weekend and about adults. When you arrange something for an athlete or a superstar or anybody to hang out with kids, and it's a very simple rule. It's for the kids. And when adults are muscling in because they want to get a piece of Saquon Barkley or they want to get a selfie or they want to do something, give them a hug, and you're prepared to trample over people to do so, I got to really wonder what's happening. Mayhem. It didn't occur to me at the event I was at that I would need the NYPD, which I didn't end up calling, of course. But man, I could have used some muscle. I was there in my blazer, all 65 inches, trying to protect him and keep the adults away and keep him engaged with the kids for the time that he was at the event. It worked, but then there was a lot of whispers about me the rest of the night. I can't believe David's such a fat, lazy ass. All right, we come back. We're going to recap the Oscars. For those who did not watch the live recap, we're going to do it much faster. And then we're going to talk about what's going on in the NFL and NFL films, because you will not believe who is being highlighted for this year's off-season Hard Knocks. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It is David Samson with Matthew Coca. Thank you, Coca. Appreciate you staying up late with us last night. Really do. We did, Adnan Verk and I, we didn't do the stained carpet. There was no pre-show. There was no watch party. Look for us to do that again with Dan Lebitard and Meadowlark next year, but it did not happen this year. So instead, Adnan and I did a post-game show. We were live and up after the Best Picture was awarded to Anora minutes later and gave you 45 minutes of fun. The Oscars took 3 hours and 50 minutes. People lost their minds. We actually were told by the host, Conan O'Brien, that we suffered from Stockholm Syndrome if we were still watching. There's one thing I don't love. I don't love being told that what I'm doing is not cool. If it's not cool, I'll be told after, and I may feel badly after, like loving Air Supply. But when I'm in the middle of listening to a song, I don't want someone in my ear saying, by the way, that's a geeky love song. What are you doing, Dave? I'm in the middle of watching a show. I recognize it's going to go 350 and not 323 from last year. I recognize that I'm going to be on the air later than I expected doing the post show. I don't want to be told to feel badly that I'm doing it. I want to be thanked. I'd rather Conan O'Brien had said, for those of you still watching, we get you, we need you, and we love you. That would have been better. Conan O'Brien was the host of the Oscars. He was funny. If you've watched the Conan O'Brien show, he's got this way about him. It's self-deprecating in a way that's just enough to be funny and not too much to be unreasonable. He had a few bits, a few jokes that were good. Recognized he had to completely discuss what happened with Amelia Perez immediately. So we made a joke about the eventual Best Picture, biggest winner of the night, Anora, saying Anora says the F word 479 times, slightly more than the number of times the Amelia Perez actress, Carla, had her publicist saying it after her tweets. What a great way to deal with that woman and her canceling of the Amelia Perez train that led to it leading in nominations, led it to become the biggest loser in Oscar history, as from a film standpoint, going 2-11 last night. Not ideal. Some parts of the show were better than others. The beginning, even though it was strange that it was there, but there was a wicked recap sung by Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. It was, man, Cynthia has a great voice. I'm not exactly sure what Queen Latifah was doing. Not sure what Margaret Qualley was doing, dancing to James Bond. The only reason James Bond was honored and talked about, and some nice clip packages, was that Barbara Broccoli and her producing partner sold the rights to Amazon for future Bonds. Big whoop. They could have cut that, should have cut that immediately. No reason for it. That would have saved some minutes. I could save a few minutes, right? It's low-hanging fruit. Don't sing me a song about how you're not going to waste my time and then waste my time. I'll save you a couple minutes. Don't have actors and actresses talking about their personal relationship with all 5 nominees in the category when they don't know half of them. You're wasting my time. Stop Adrian Brody from giving a speech that's so long that you want to go up there and give him the Gong Show hook yourself. I was hoping for a streaker. Something, please. If Hulu cuts the stream before the show's over, you know maybe that it's gone too long. I was fine. I'd watch. There was a Billy Crystal show that went over 4 hours when he hosted. He did the best picture with Meg Ryan last night to Honora. I love the Oscars. I'd watch them for 6 hours, but I understand that you got to appeal to people who don't want to sit there for 350. Get rid of the fluff. Keep the jokes. I love what he did with the first responders. He had them read jokes. They were decent delivery. The last one about Conan was not great, but the first couple, good. I laughed. I was happy. I was surprised that James Earl Jones wasn't the last title card in the in memoriam section. That was disappointing. He lost out to Gene Hackman. I would have bet money if there were a market after Morgan Freeman comes on the stage and does a whole Gene Hackman piece to start the in memoriam, I would have told you there's no Gene Hackman in the in memoriam because he just died. Gene Hackman got front end and back end attention. Meanwhile, my guy from Let It Ride, Looney, David Johansen, got no attention at all. Zero. He wasn't in the in memoriam. Why not? I mean, I didn't expect Michelle Trachtenberg, but David Johansen feeling hot. That's Buster Poindexter. Give me 50 bugs on Junebug. It's the name of my cat. To the ticket seller played by Robbie Coltrane. I'm going to miss David Johansen. I felt like you may have been there if you look at recent pictures of David Johansen looking a lot like Mick Jagger, who came on stage to present Best Original Song. It's going to be weird. We don't have the video capability or the support necessary to do this. But if we did, you'd have a picture right now of David Johansen and Mick Jagger looking identical. Weird. Very. What's next for the Oscars? Now I start over. I lost my pool. I'm embarrassed to tell you I lost to Adnan 17-14. I lost to everyone in my family. Well, not everyone in my family. I always win this pool. I lost to my son-in-law, Ryan. Ryan got 17 right, which is a pathetic number for a winner, but he still won. I got to give him props. I finished in 14. I finished in 4th place. I can't. You know what the worst part about losing is that it's not just a momentary thing. When you lose, you're always a loser for that moment, for that event. I can't undo my first boot from Survivor. I lost Survivor, and that's with me forever. And when you do something like that, you have a chance at redemption. In baseball, if you do something bad on a Monday in the season, you get a chance for redemption Tuesday. When you lose in the Oscars, you know that you got to have that follow you all year because the 2025 Oscar ballot will have the results of the 2026 Oscar ballot will have the results of the 2025 show. So I will have to see this ballot where I have only 14 wins. I will have to deal with Adnan Virk, who for a full year will get to say that he did better than I in the ballot. He had Honora's Best Picture. I had Conclave. Neither of us had Mikey Madison as Best Actress. We both had, like everybody, Demi Moore, who must be despondent beyond repair for not winning. She tried to fake it. You got to fake it. You got to try to fake it. I mean, faking it, does it help? Do you eventually get found out when you're faking it? These are interesting questions. I should have asked Meg Ryan while she was there. God, if you can get that, you'd be really right inside where my crazy brain is if you are with me still. And if you're not, stay with me. Stay with me. Let's talk about the NFL for a hot second. Our data analytics say that you want to hear about baseball, but when you hear about football, you're not unhappy. Did you see this weekend when it was announced that Bill Belichick and the University of North Carolina Tar Heels are going to be the team that is followed by HBO and NFL films? They're the team for Hard Knocks offseason. Did anyone look at that and say, wow, they couldn't find anyone to do what the Giants did last year because the Giants heard about it for the rest of the year with what Mara said about Saquon? That's a little thread. That's a show thread. After we did the franchise in 2012, the franchise shut down, couldn't find another team to do it. The curse of the franchise is what the Giants said it was. San Francisco. They were right. Is there a curse of the Hard Knocks off season? Is it just that they have the secret sauce to Coke versus New Coke? They don't want anyone seen it. The old draft board situation. How do you think it went when they went to Bill Belichick and said, "What about you being on Hard Knocks?" This is how I pictured it. Now, this is Coca. I just thought of this, and this is how our show works. Do you think that they approached Bill Belichick and he was like, "No chance, toilet pants"? And then his girlfriend, and I don't want to be an age guy, believe me, I don't, but do you think his girlfriend said, "Bill, are you kidding me? This is the type of exposure we dream about as influencers. This type of exposure is what you want. You're not saying no. I will leave you, you almost octogenarian. I will find someone 1/3 your age and then take 10 years off, and I'm still going to be okay." I think that's exactly what happened. I think the NFL could not convince anyone. And if in the NFL and NFL Films, I believe that they got together and said, what's the best thing we can do to drive ratings? What's the best team we can follow? And they exhausted every pro team. And they said, what's another interesting story in football? And they said, wait a minute. The return of Bill Belichick to the sidelines, that's sort of cool. I mean, no one really cares too much about the Tar Heels, but that's sort of cool. And do you think they called up Bill's agent to start? Do you think they called up Bill Belichick to start? I will bet you $1 to a donut that this was run through his girlfriend. A little feeler, so to speak. A little trial balloon. What would you think? Do you think, here's one for you, Coca. Do you think there's a chance that she appears on Hard Knocks? And I'm not trying to in any way impugn their relationship. I'm just not. If they're happy, I'm happy. But this seems too sort of interesting to me as a coinkydink not to have happened, because I can only tell you what I would do, what I would feel, how I would think were I trying to cast a show. Bill Belichick, while he's been in the media since he was let go by the Patriots and has done nicely in converting into a media career, I think you'd agree that as a coach, he's not exactly very forthcoming. I think you'd agree as a coach, the thought of having cameras around as he's planning for anything would be something that he would be an immediate no. It's not like he'd consider it. Can you imagine an off-season Hard Knocks with the Patriots with Brady and Belichick? Come on. It doesn't make the Tar Heels seem mid-range to me. It doesn't make Bill Belichick seem anything other than who he is. But I'll tell you what it does do. It should give NFL Films and the distributors of the show cause for concern. You've opened Pandora's box of college football now. You have now said that our franchise, called Hard Knocks, we don't need it to be supported by a pro team. We're giving it life. It's just about a documentary of following any team. Now that you've done UNC, you can go to Division II, Division III. You can go to high school. You can go to California Penal League. You can do anything you want, which, by the way, has always been open to documentarians. The whole point of Hard Knocks, the entire point of Hard Knocks, has been that you get insight into a pro franchise and what they're doing during the offseason. We're being tricked. I won't have it. Wait to see is when I tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. We'll revisit it. On February 27th of 2025, you may not remember that. That was a super long time ago, like 5 days. I told you with no uncertain terms that Matt Stafford would be traded to the Las Vegas Raiders. I just came 1 millisecond away from saying Oakland, Coca. That's where my brain is. Well, guess what? Matt Stafford's going back to the Rams. It turns out it was all ridiculous. All of the Montana skiing with Tom Brady. Much ado about nothing, Billy. That's just a wrong way to see. I wonder what Tom Brady's going to do next in quarterback with Pete Carroll. Because the minute Matt Stafford restructured his deal with the Los Angeles Rams, it was very weird. There were like immediate tweets and immediate insider information. I forgot to, Sarah, to even talk to you about this pre-show. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be a New York Giant? Is it possible that the Giants are so bad that they're going to double down and they're going to take Aaron Rodgers? Does that mean they're going to take Adams also? If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I want to play for the Giants more than any other team. I just bought a house in Jersey. The Giants and the Jets playing the same place. You're basically doing the same commute, the same everything. You're not moving. You're settling into your lovely permafrost bed. It can't be a coincidence that there's a rumor of Rodgers to the Giants. Yes, the Giants need a quarterback. Why would it be Aaron Rodgers? And then it was, well, they're looking for a veteran, but it could be Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, whoever isn't chosen by Pittsburgh. Is this really the plan when you've got one of the top picks in the draft? Are you going to bring him in and hope that Rodgers will mentor him like he mentored Jordan Love? Oh, it's going to work out great. Let's draft a quarterback with our pick. What do they have, Coca? The 3? The 2? The Giants have one of the top picks. They'll get one of the quarterbacks, should they choose. Bring him in, sit him for a season or 2. Let Rodgers play. It's just not going to happen. It can't be that a team that I used to love is going to do that. What would be the reason that Aaron Rodgers' agent would want it out there? Multiple teams interested? I can't imagine why that would be. Why would the Giants be interested in any sort of rumor that Aaron Rodgers is a possibility? Trial balloon? We used to love those. Find me a trial balloon. Let me know what the fan base thinks. Let me see which way the wind's blowing. That's what a trial balloon is for. Get it? That's the purpose of it. Floating a trial balloon in the air, and then either it blows down, out, up, down, in, away. What's your reaction to Aaron Rodgers? Are you happy? Finally getting away from the shadow of Brett Favre? The whole thing is ridiculous. I'll give you a wait to see. Make this one official, Coca. Aaron Rodgers will not play for the New York Giants in game 1 of next year's season. I'm only saying that because I want to take the win after week 1. Because if I say he won't play for the Giants next season, I got to wait till week 18. If I say he won't play for the Giants week 1, it means I can take the win week 1, which is only, 8 months away? Fewer. It could be 6 months away, actually. Nothing personal pick of the day. On Friday, we had the Celtics beating the Cavs. Did not work. The Celtics were leading that game, and the Cavs came back to win. We're now 18-23 for our nothing personal pick of the day. The NBA is tough. The Cavs are tough. They don't give up. The NBA is back to what it was when I was young. So this is an old complaint. Just keep it in mind. You don't need to watch till the fourth quarter. That's been going on since the 80s. People have said that. But now people say it as though it's some sort of truth that has changed in the game as a way to long for old times. Well, here's a super secret surprise. We thought those things back when I was young. The reason I like watching the 4 quarters of the game is I love feeling so good when my team is up 17, and I love feeling not so crappy when my team is down 17, even though I know that any 17-point lead in the first period, 9 times out of 10 does not matter one iota. Celtics had a big lead over the Cavs. The Cavs played the Blazers last night. Did you watch that game, Coco? It was a nightmare. I watched highlights. I didn't watch the game. I was watching the Oscars. I was getting Heat Nick updates. Are Heat fans upset? Nick fans happy? God, as a Knicks fan, I needed to beat the Heat so badly. And then as president of the Marlins, I wanted the Heat to lose so badly. And they were so good year after year that I was in Miami, winning championships, getting LeBron and Shaq. What a nightmare the Heat were during my tenure. The Heat, of course, now without Jimmy Butler. Did you see the lawsuit for Jimmy Butler? Did you see his rent, Coca? He was paying like 150 grand a month in rent on a house that's 10 million bucks, reportedly. That math is very strange to me. That means you're paying about 1.8 million in rent. You could have that paid off in like 7 years. Seems crazy. But apparently Jimmy Butler is not a good tenant. I can't believe it. I find that shocking. So they're suing him. Why was Jimmy Butler just on my mind? Oh, because of the Heat Knicks. Why are we even talking about the Heat Knicks? We're talking about the Cavs. I really have no idea. The Cavs played them. Oh, because of what I watched part of yesterday. The Knicks game started at 6, so I had the split screen situation going on where I'm watching the pregame Oscars because it's prime red carpet. And then while I was not paying attention, the Knicks had a deficit. They caught up. The Heat were going to win. Then it goes to overtime and the Knicks win. But I was looking at box scores and thinking about games. Cavs Blazers had 53 fouls called. 53. That's a record for any game since the NBA and ABA merged, which is code word for it's been a super long time. One of the Cavs players, the reason why it was so noteworthy is you don't see this often. A Cavs player called out a woman referee. We had a pretty deep, detailed, multiple week, day, month, year conversation about women umpires in baseball. There are women referees in basketball. There have been for a super long time, not long enough. You now see women in pinstripes on the gridiron, side judges, back judges. There's never been a woman referee. It's going to happen, obviously. I have a different view of this, and I want to run it by you. I have no problem with a player saying, I thought the refs were bad, especially Natalie. She was really bad. I don't think Ty Jerome should be fined any differently than you're fined for when you criticize a male referee. I don't want there to be outrage. And this is one of the things that I say coming from a place of privilege, coming from a place where I don't exactly know, other than being Jewish, what it's like. But don't you want the goal to be that you're treated like everybody else? And when you are yelled at by a player, you can tee him up. When you make a bad call, you're going to be criticized and the player can be fined or not. But you are open season as an NBA referee to be the butt of a criticism by a player. You got to be okay with that. I think that Natalie is fine with that. We'll see what the NBA does. Tonight, we're taking the Dallas Mavericks in their post-Lucas situation. They are favored by 1.5 points over the Sacramento Kings. The Kings, who have just been on the struggle bus this year when we thought there was an actual opportunity for them to make some noise in the playoffs. I feel like they're back to the middle of the pack. The Mavs are trying to repeat as champions of their conference. Not going to happen, but I do have the Mavs winning the game tonight. Mavs minus 1.5 over the Kings. I want to close today with a congrats. It's a congrats to Albert Pujols, who is being rumored to be the manager of the Dominican Republic World Baseball Classic team. This is not a small deal. Being asked to manage the World Baseball Classic team, whether you're asked to manage the USA team the way Mark DeRosa was 4 years ago, the way I would expect him to be asked again to manage them this year, you're asked to manage the Dominican team, which is amongst the best in the world, and you are Albert Pujols, one of the greatest players to ever play the game, and you are trying to become a big league manager. When you're asked to manage the DRWBC team, you are getting close, Albert. It did not occur to me that he would actually want to manage and do the daily grind of the work, given A, the amount of money he's made, B, the greatness that he has, C, the frustration he'll feel when he looks at mediocrity up and down the bench more often than not. And yet there he is doing it, wanting to understand and get the reps. and the WBC is the perfect place. He will then have his agent be able to look in the eye of a GM and say, A, I'm experienced. B, I know what I'm doing. C, hire me to be your team's manager. It's a thrilling move. The World Baseball Classic is coming in only a year. And believe me, countries are getting ready. You saw at the Four Nations Cup with the NHL. This stuff matters. He expects the Dominican to win. It's just business, he'll say when he's officially announced. And I'll say, we'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.